Hmm.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi again. And I'm going to share my screen now. Uh, so, as you can see, my name is Dr. Pramila Nair Pampalore, and my topic is Sustainability in Education Sector, a review to establish new norm post-COVID-19. So this study that I've been doing is based on the uh, school closures during pandemic, which is a very usual or normal thing throughout last century. Like for example, when the influenza outbreak happened in US in 1918-19, the Asian flu outbreak in 1957-58, the influenza again in the US in 2004-2008, and the H1N1 flu outbreak in 2009, which happened in multiple countries. All of those times, as all those times were an outbreak or a pandemic time, it was very normal to have school closures because this is a place where there would be large gatherings, and in order to stop the spread, all of the governments would decide to close the schools. But the COVID-19 outbreak is a humongous outbreak which actually affected 1.5 billion learners worldwide and as a never seen phenomena, because of which many learners had to go to something known as remote or emergency remote learning. So my study is based on understanding the objectives in terms of the effects of sudden closures of in-person education system globally, and to recommend solutions such that institutions can be better prepared in the education sector when such a pandemic occurs in future, or such a situation is in the future. This is the main research question. The scope of the research is basically around the standard in terms of keeping or maintaining the sustainability in the education sector during the school closures during COVID-19. And the limitations are that due to time and scale constraints, the sources are not exhaustive, obviously. And I have tried to use as many sources as possible in order to try and get a conclusion or to try and get my objectives. The methodology is secondary research, where secondary data was used from literature away from ResearchGate website. There were four categories which were identified in the methodology, uh, uh, which was used to select the sources, all in all, a total of 43. And they were based on the year, geographical location, study discipline, and perspectives. It is very important that the study, for me, basically, that the study be very recent, because the COVID times we could take as 2020 and 2021, which is ongoing. And pre-COVID, I didn't want to take too many years. And since 2019, December is when COVID was actually known to have started. I took 2019 as one of the pre-COVID years. So all the studies, all the sources belong to these 3 years. The geographical location was identified based on the name of the countries in the topic of the study, or the university affiliation, or wherever it was printed, the city, and according to that, the country. All in all, 34 countries were used, and I said it is not exhaustive because I could only use for most of it one study per country. The disciplines that were involved in this, since this is more of a higher education sector study, it was medical, engineering, science, management, social sciences, humanities, commerce, arts, and law. The perspectives, the rationale for it to generalize to as many users as possible. So the perspectives that were used were that of parents, teachers, students, administrators, and netizens in the study. The literature shows that in the 19th century, Education was more about for the purpose of trying to include the people in the workforce. And later on, education was more about trying to include them in the democratic process. Even now, we are still not clear with the COVID-19 and post COVID-19, how should we go forward in understanding why we are going to use or how we're going to use education as. But broadly, the modes of education can be divided into three. Uh, the first one being in person, where you have the traditional classroom style teaching. And in order to, and with time, the traditional part became a little bit more newer in terms of having new different types of teaching methodologies. The second one being the online classes, which is the inception of which started in 1999. Um, Many initiatives were done in order to actually have a successful implementation of the massive open online courses, or the MOOC, in the 2012. And one of the examples of the successful online courses worldwide was that of from Future Learn, which is a course on understanding IELTS from the British Council, which started in May 2015. And this course had learners from 190 countries, of which 25% use mobile devices for learning. So online teaching is not something new. And the next one being the hybrid, the definition of which is sometimes in person and online, or sometimes online synchronous and asynchronous. Using different ways of teaching is basically what the definition of hybrid was understood in my study. The global effects of pandemic were known in terms of effect on users on various streams, and the boom of educational technologies, where many new companies came up with new methods and online platforms for educational institutions to actually come up with to be able to continue with the educational system. The four important findings in the study were unpreparedness of the educational institutions, where selecting online platforms in itself was a big challenge for many institutions, which are followed by untrained users in terms of teachers and students. An example of which was when in one of the countries, the evaluations were compared between before COVID and after COVID of the professors. It showed a very decline and very untrained or very negative evaluation for those professors who throughout many years had good evaluations. And the third one being the effect on the academic calendar, which put a lot of pressure on many users, and they did not want to lose time in terms of academic calendar, so they did not mind the quality of education being lower. So these were the three things in this factor. Then the second one being unavailability of remote systems for people with or learners with less financial resources. It was difficult to have remote systems. So when educational institutions switched to online education, they did not have these devices to use in order to download, upload, or even access the classes. The third one is the internet connectivity, for which many of the times it was the problem with the government negotiation with the network companies, because of which the since it was not successful, there was not enough internet connectivity for many users to have a proper quality of education, even if it was online. And the last one being minimum to no hands-on experience for many streams. The one big example being the medical and the nursing field, where students couldn't do the practicals because most of the hospitals and medical colleges were catering to COVID-19 patients. And so in those times, they could not attend surgeries and continue with their studies, which would in effect make loss of time in their academic calendar. So this was my findings. The recommendations, the center of my recommendation is a process to have a good planning, designing, developing, implementing, and monitoring system. Because in some of the countries, as my study or the short paper, if you read, you can see that they had these systems up until developing, but they did not continue with the implementing and monitoring. So even though they started it for years, when they switched to the emergency remote system, they still couldn't give the proper online education system to their students. Four prominent factors that I would like to recommend in this term is introduction of an online component to the curriculum. So even if the school or the particular institution is having a complete in person, it's always better to have an online component so that so that the students are able to understand that that is how they are up to date in how to continue with their classes, and the teachers have proper professional development courses where they know and keep up with the new technologies. Coming to the second one, which is adequate training of users in educational technologies, this is where it leads to, where students and learners both should be able to be trained if there is already an online component. Then the third one is to have a proper infrastructure development for high-speed internet, because this is a complaint which constantly, even now, learners and facilitators are facing as a challenge. And the last one being provision of ICT devices to learners who cannot afford to purchase it, which is a very important thing which educational institution and government should continue and understand these kind of learners and try to help them with financial resources or with scholarship, etc., to have ICT devices so that they can use it. In the end, I would like to conclude that quality of education is one of the UN sustainability goals, goal number 4, and it is not just the right, but it's a mandatory requirement for every youth growing up in every country. So it's required that we have more such research in future to be able to use them whenever such a situation occurs. Thank you for being there for my presentation. Any questions?
Great, thank you so much. Sorry about the red card there, but that's the timing. You did a great job and very informative.
That was a marathon.
It was, yes. Congratulations on finishing the marathon. So we've got 4 minutes for questions. Anybody in the audience have a question for Pramila on her presentation? I'm not seeing questions.
I have a question, Darren.
Oh, Neil, okay, you're up.
Yeah, no, thanks for the presentation. I think it was really interesting. I was particularly thought it was quite good, quite informative about the lack of preparation, how people were caught off guard for teaching online. We just sort of, I think a lot of institutions just went at it and didn't provide the support and the training. And I'm interested interested to find out, did you find any change in the delivery in how the institutions responded? There was the initial outset of the reaction, but was there a shift in providing then more training and support for instructors in the delivery of the programs?
So I had read many articles on the institutions working on it, but still not much result on because based on evaluations, many studies from the students do not show a positive result in the training, I think.
Okay, great. And I had one other question, if I can. We talked about sort of the challenges of connectivity, which I know we certainly experienced in some regions of the world when we were delivering programs online, and whether it be synchronously or asynchronously. And but the other issue we found was that the equipment that people had. And, you know, basically we made the assumption, or we're making the assumption, that everybody had access to a computer. In fact, what we found is a lot of people were taking their courses on their cell phones. Yes. And I'm wondering, did that come up, or that type of experience come up as a part of your study as well?
Yes, that's what I was talking about here in this slide, unavailability of remote systems. Even if they have access to, I read about it that when they have access to mobile devices, it is only for the classes. If they cannot use it very well with the learning management system, not all of them, and they cannot download or upload things through mobile devices easily. And even if they could, they need to have the new mobile system like the smart screens, etc. If they don't have that, then again they cannot continue with the classes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, Neil, I think we have work to do. Maybe one of our jobs is to provide these things in the future, because you're right, doing a whole degree on a cell phone is just not a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think many schools are moving in that direction. Then the technology, the cost of the technology is being driven down tremendously. We were looking at some Chromebooks, for example, right? And they're incredibly affordable. And I don't know, there could be plans for students to have access to those.
Definitely, yeah.